Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Man, oh man, Bioware's marketing team, I think I need to start giving them some kudos, all right? Because I've been saying a lot about the marketing for this game. I feel like one day it's up, one day it's down, one day it's up, one day it's down. But when it really comes down to it, the responsibility of your advertisers is to keep your brand out there, keep your name in the mix, keep people thinking about you. And I'll be darned if week after week after week, something hasn't always happened with this game that has us talking about it. As much as I felt like the marketing should have been more positive, it should have been better, I've been making videos on Veilguard just about every week, and this week is no exception. The big difference this time, though, is I'm not completely sure where I stand on this issue, and I'm really interested in hearing from you all how you feel. So, first and foremost, for those who are not already aware, Bioware announced that there will be no spiders in Veilguard. Now, some of you might hear that news and say, well, so what? In most games, they don't have spiders. This is the Dragon Age series. It works a little bit differently. There were quite a bit of spiders in Dragon Age 1, and it was definitely something that was talked about a lot in Origins. They didn't have, I think they only had like one or two giant spiders, but definitely the little spiders that you had to deal with that were just going to be icky and creep you out. It had plenty of those throughout the game. Dragon Age 2, in my opinion, kicked that up a notch, where they had even more spiders that were heavily prevalent throughout dungeons, and they had more giant spiders who would all of a sudden drop down from the ceiling on top of your group, and some of them were really powerful. So not only would they kind of get the jump on you, it could be a real brawl in order to take those giant spiders down. And then finally you had Inquisition, which in my opinion had less of them from what I've seen thus far, but still plenty of them. And it had one or two major enemies whose design was clearly kind of based off spiders. So just all the way around, keeping spiders in front of the screen has been a big thing throughout Dragon Age. I cannot remember if there was an arachnophobia setting for any of those games. I assume there was, because there were a lot of people asking when Bioware announced the accessibility options, hey, where's the setting for arachnophobia? So I guess it was in those previous games, but I never looked for it. So honestly, I'm not completely sure. Regardless, when the question was asked, that prompted Bioware to say, hey, there's no arachnophobia setting because there are no spiders in the game. Therefore, it's not necessary. And I've seen quite a few people who are upset with Bioware about this, who feels like having spiders in Dragon Age is a staple of the series, and therefore Bioware has taken something away. I've also seen quite a few people say there are a lot of different phobias, right? Some people have phobias about dogs. Some people have phobias about cats. Why is it somehow phobias about spiders are given this special pedestal? And there were also definitely a lot of people who expressed that arachnophobia for most people is really about spiders in person. It's not about seeing spiders on your screen. Even people who have arachnophobia, their fear is that they're all of a sudden going to see a spider on their wall or crawling on their desk, or actually crawling on them. Facing spiders, giant fake spiders in a video game doesn't necessarily trigger them, and therefore this whole thing to them is stupid, and they feel like Bioware not having this is just kind of, you know, pandering to people who don't even need to be pandered to, right? Basically. I'm of two minds about this. I'm conflicted, and I'm really curious how many of you feel about it. One mind, it comes from the standpoint of the player, but then I've got this other mind that comes from the standpoint of someone who streams these games and has to consider the audience that is viewing this content, right? So let's start with me as a player. As a player, I really didn't care about spiders at all in Dragon Age 1. I loved them in 2. I love the way the giant spiders could just drop on to your party out of nowhere. There were definitely one or two times where I had a jump scare, like, oh my God, I can't believe it's just dropping on me like this. And again, some of those fights were kind of tough. I even like the animation when you kill the spiders, the way it flips over and all their legs curl up. I think all that is super cool. So I really enjoyed it in Dragon Age 2. In 1, it was just okay. I was just going through those enemies, the Darkspawn, who I really love in 1. And like I said before, in Inquisition, I don't feel like they're nearly as prevalent. But just in general, I do agree with those people who say having a lot of spiders in the game has kind of been a staple of the Dragon Age series. And it is going to be kind of weird not having any of them in the game. I don't think it's going to be something where I'm going to be thinking about it constantly, like, oh man, I wish there were spiders here. I don't feel like that thought is ever going to cross my mind. But it is kind of weird for it to be such a staple of the series for it to be taken away. It's not quite to this point, but to me, it's almost like having a Final Fantasy game without a Marlboro to go up against, right? It'd just be odd not to see them at all. But that doesn't mean you can have enough different enemies where it's not that big of a deal. Then there's a whole other side for me though, the side of the streamer, right? The side of the content creator. I will be honest with you, as much as I enjoyed fighting those spiders, every single time I was on a stream and spiders came up, it did make me uncomfortable. It did make me uncomfortable because I immediately started thinking, okay, who's watching my stream right now? And how is this content making them feel? And there were definitely times when people commented in the chat like, wow, I can't stand spiders, I can't deal with spiders. I'm gonna walk away from 10 minutes and then I'm gonna come back, you know? And if a person comments that, you already know there's 10 people who are thinking the same thing, but not actually commenting anything. And some of them might just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just shut this down because I don't wanna be exposed to this kind of content that's gonna trigger me. And so from the standpoint of a streamer and a content creator, I'm definitely leaning towards, I like this change because I like the idea that hopefully I'm not going to end up streaming a bunch of dungeons that are going to potentially turn off sections of my stream and cause them to become very uncomfortable with the content that I'm creating. Now, I don't know for sure that, you know, a bunch of people would sometimes leave my stream specifically because I was going through dungeons with a bunch of spiders. I turn off my viewer counter when I'm streaming because I don't want the amount of people who are or are not viewing the stream to impact the quality that I provide to whatever audience I do have. So I don't see the ebb and flow in that way, but it's definitely always a thought. It's definitely always in my head like, this is probably turning off some folks, right? In a way that I'm not comfortable turning off folks. Like sometimes you're on a stream and it's dealing with very heavy topics. And you know, some people may not be willing to watch games or content that deals with a particular type of content or a particular type of topic. I'm good with that. I'm good with that because I like exploring and hearing that type of dialogue, hearing those type of conversations. And if it turns some people off, that's fine. But the idea of turning a person off because all of a sudden there's a bunch of spiders scurrying around, you know, or mice scurrying around on my stream, and then all of a sudden that triggers somebody in a bad way, that I'm not really comfortable with, that I don't feel good about. And so there's a part of me that appreciates I won't have to worry about that when I'm live streaming Veilguard. That's my personal perspective. Again, I think I'm leaning towards, I like this. I think Bioware did the right thing. Very curious how you all feel. Does it matter to you? Do you feel like, hey, whether or not spiders are in the game is irrelevant to me? For those of you who have arachnophobia, who, you know, seeing spiders really triggers you, does it trigger you if you see them in a video game? If you have an arachnophobia setting, do you even bother clicking it? Or is this something that just completely doesn't matter and therefore you could care less about what Bioware has done? Definitely looking forward to hearing you all's feedback. Appreciate you all watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.